Hey guys, Lost here. Now, Arma 3 is famed for not only its realism, I guess, but its ability to mod. So when it comes to mods that enhance the game's realism or tactical feel, it is something I always enjoy to make everything much more immersive. So here are 10 mods that I was able to use in this past year that I feel makes everything much more realistic. I hope you guys enjoy. So starting off at number 10 is Speed of Sound Pure, which is a mod I have reviewed before, but it is a sound modification to Arma 3 that I think adds a lot for immersion's sake in Arma 3. It changes almost every single aspect of audio for the vanilla Arma 3, from everything from reloading your gun to the sound of bullets flying by your head, or maybe a turret going off for a tank. It changes a lot of sounds that some things that Arma 3 just doesn't provide in the vanilla game. So here's a little comparison between the Speed of Sound Pure modification and the Arma 3 vanilla effects. So setting up large-scale missions in Arma can kind of be a pain, but that's where this mod comes in. Alive, the Advanced Light Infantry Virtual Environment. Alive is a modular mission framework for Arma 3 that allows you to do large-scale dynamic battlefield campaigns in a much larger sandbox setting. It really changes how Arma does its multiplayer experience on a large scale for missions, not like many mods usually do. If you're looking to do combat on a much larger scale against AI with other friends, this is definitely a mod you should go check out so you can get things done. It's extremely helpful with milsim units, and I've used this mod before. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say. It's kind of a hard thing to show off, but if you're doing things on a much larger scale that the Arma 3 vanilla doesn't provide, this is definitely a mod to go check out. So for number 8, we have a visual enhancement mod, and this mod is called Blastcore Phoenix. This mod completely renovates everything from the impact of bullets, whether that's on dirt or maybe on a wall, to the explosions of grenades or RPGs being fired at vehicles, and vehicle explosions that make things just look so much cooler in my opinion. Now, the vanilla Arma 3 already does a fairly good job with it, but in my opinion, the explosions from vehicles are usually just a lot of smoke and some fire, but the mod adds in a lot of particle effects and shrapnel, things flying off that really makes things look a lot more in-depth. If you're into these visual enhancement type mods, there are a lot of different versions of Blastcore other than Blastcore Phoenix, as well as other enhancements that change the way the game's visual aspects work. I would definitely recommend going and checking these things out because it definitely adds a lot to the game. This next mod is one of the first mods I ever reviewed, and that is SRS Dragonfire sound modification. This mod works basically the same way as Speed of Sound does, except it makes different sounds basically. This is another mod I've used extensively, and I would have to rank it higher than Speed of Sound, but that's just my personal opinion. Here again is another comparison between the vanilla sounds and SRS Dragonfire. So if you compare that to the vanilla sounds or speed of sound pure, you can tell there's definitely a difference. Ultimately, it comes down to personal preference on, I guess, what type of sounds you would like in your game, but that is just the glory of modding in Arma 3. Definitely go check it out. So this next mod is extremely important when it comes to changing the way Arma works, and that is ASR AI for Arma 3. This mod is one of the best AI and enhancing mods for Arma 3 that I have seen, and I've actually used and gotten to play with quite a bit to see how it actually works out. We all know that when it comes to AI in Arma 3, it is extremely clunky, and a lot of times the AI don't behave very fluidly or naturally like you think that they should. Now this mod doesn't stop them from glitching out or having, weird things happen to them, but it does enhance them when it comes to engaging them during the campaign or maybe an AI setup by Zeus. So don't be surprised if you use this mod and all of a sudden the enemy squads are lobbing RPGs at your squad's position, trying to pin you down while calling in reinforcements to flank you from the side in an attempt to take you out in a different way that the normal Arma 3 AI normally wouldn't behave. You might not think this is a realism mod, but chances are if you are doing some type of scenario with a realism unit, you will probably end up using an AI enhancement mod that makes things extremely difficult and much more realistic when it comes to engaging the enemy, unless you're playing against actual players. So if Arma 3 was not enough of a challenge for you, this is definitely a mod to check out if you're doing some type of realism scenario against AI with other teammates. I highly recommend using this mod. We are making our way down the list to number 5. Playing Arma in general, and especially when you're playing tactically, communication is so important and vital when it comes to teamwork. I knew this mod should take at least a top 5 spot because Task Force Radio is extremely vital when it comes to communicating in Arma with other people around you. Task Force Radio adds a completely dynamic and realistic radio system into Arma. Whether that's a handheld walkie-talkie or a long-distance radio, you'll always have to take into consideration the distance between two people when they're talking, so that it just makes things incredibly more immersive. On top of that, it adds a communication system in-game where you can talk quietly, whisper, talk normally, or yell loudly in case, you don't want to be heard by the enemy. The communication system in the vanilla Arma is average. It's kind of clunky and hard to maneuver around, but this completely streamlines it to make things way easier and much more realistic. It would actually give a function to somebody that's carrying a radio versus somebody that's just carrying a handheld walkie-talkie, because if the man carrying the radio goes down, then somebody else is going to have to pick it up and start using it, because communication is just so important, especially in realism units. Now, Task Force Radio is not the only communication or radio-based mod. There are things like Acre, the Advanced Combat Radio Environment, which essentially does the same thing. It sort of depends on which one you prefer, but I've always used Task Force Radio, so this is what I am most familiar with. Sorry for being a little one-sided, but essentially the job gets done either way. So when it comes to the number 5 and number 4 spot, I would have to say this spot was kind of a toss-up. This is the ShackTac Fireteam Heads-Up display. Now, does it add to the immersion? Probably not, but when it comes to realism, overall, this definitely is sort of a thing that Arma really needs. Obviously, the first person in Arma 3 is fairly limited, as is every other first-person shooter. This just gives you a little display that is able to show you your teammates around you as well as other people, color coordinated, which you can set yourself so that you know who's who if you're playing with multiple people. It really fills in the gaps that you don't get to see because Arma is obviously a game. It gives you the situational awareness and kind of the ability to see your surroundings a little better so that you would actually be able to recognize what is happening around you. If you are unfamiliar with the Shack Tactical group, they have a lot of mods like this heads-up display that really enhances Arma 3's immersion, or at least the tactical side of the game. That makes things a lot more interesting if you want to go check out them and that group. Down to number 3 is one of the largest mods that Arma has seen, and that is SRS Escalation. This mod combines all of the things from the United States Armed Forces pack and the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation pack and combines it all into one big mod. It might not be coined necessarily a realism or immersion mod, but I can guarantee you if most of the time you're doing some type of realism scenario, you will probably have this mod on, or at least one of the two versions of this mod. And since this is such a big add-on, we're going to take a look at what all this mod has to offer. So by accessing the virtual arsenal through the main menu, we can take a quick little look at what this mod has in store. So right off the bat, you can tell that there is different equipment on the soldier here. If you go over to the side, you will see all of the new weapons that this mod brings in, and all the red is just for the Russian side. The United States side is also in there, it just doesn't have a little marker next to it. You can see there are a lot of different weapons added in, from handguns to launchers to automatic and semi-automatic weapons, even new sniper rifles for you to try out and use. But when we get into the other gears, when you really see how much this mod has to offer and all the different variants of clothing, backpacks, and vests that you can wear, that makes things look awesome. Like I said, chances are if you are doing any type of realism unit or scenario, you will probably be using some type of gear mod like this. This is just one of the best ones that I have found that was actually one of the top mods for Make Arma Not War competition. On top of the copious amounts of gear and weapons it adds, there are also a lot of vehicles that this mod adds, so let's check that out. It adds all different variations of vehicles to both sides, the United States and the Russian side, whether that's simple transport trucks to tanks and armored cars. This mod has everything. Using the virtual arsenal, you can also drive them around and try them out, but we can do that later. In terms of amount of content that these mods offer, this is one of the most content offering of the mods that I've reviewed. If you have been living under a rock and have not used, seen, or heard about this mod, then please, by all means, check it out. So we're getting up there on our list of realism mods. For number 2 is a mod that I have used quite frequently in my experience with realism units, and that is the authentic gameplay modification. This mod completely renovates most things in Arma 3, making them more realistic and immersive, most notably the medical system. It adds in features such as a backblast for rockets, wind deflection for projectiles, weapon resting, fire controls, improved map tools, adjustable night vision goggle contrast. This mod is slightly outdated since they have updated some of those things into the vanilla Arma itself, but all in all, in the past year, this mod is one that I have used and that has definitely impressed me when it comes to making Arma more immersive. There are many more tweaks that this has added into Arma that I cannot list all of them. I definitely recommend to at least check this out if you are doing any type of realism or immersion things in Arma. This is one of the very first mods that I used when I got into realism units and milsim things in general in Arma, so this really stuck with me when I decided to make a countdown for realism mods. We finally made it to number 1. Now, not only has this mod been on my countdowns before, but it has taken my number 1 spot before as well. And that mod is ACE, or the Advanced Combat Environment for Arma 3. Even though this has been my number 1 on realism mods before, it has still remained true for me, because everything that I've seen from this mod since I've been using it just makes Arma so much better. Better than what I've seen any other gameplay modification do to make it more immersive. It does do a lot of the basic things that other gameplay modifications do, like AGM with the medical system and things like that, but other than being set up differently, it does have a lot of other features that I think make it much better and much more fluid. The reason why Ace really takes a spot for me is because it's so much more fluid than the other types of gameplay modifications. Especially when it comes to the medical system, it is so much more fluid than the other gameplay modifications. By simply looking at which extremity you would like to heal, you can bandage or inject morphine, maybe epinephrine, to get rid of the pain or to get somebody back up. Also, little things like giving somebody an extra magazine or setting down explosives is way more fluid with this system that I've found, and Ace just never fails to impress. So everything from needing to wear earplugs to protect yourself from loud noises, to flashbangs and a completely revamped medical system, Ace 3 has everything you will need to make your Arma that much more immersive. Now, since we are reaching the end here, there is a mod that I wanted to add in as an honorable mention, and this mod is Mocap Melee. This mod adds in the ability to use a melee combat, such as, using a weapon to hit people or hit things, kind of like a normal FPS would have. But on top of that, it also gives you the ability to take someone down stealthily from behind, whether you're lying down, whether they're lying down, whether you're standing up or they're crouched. You can do a lot of cool takedowns that I think are just some of the coolest things and one of the coolest mods that I've actually seen. This mod is a huge plus for immersion, and I just couldn't find room to fit it on here, but I definitely think it deserves a spot either way. So we're coming to the end here with our top 10 realism mods for Arma 3. Please leave a comment to let you know I do read all of my comments. For some reason, this video is an especially hard one for me to make. I want to thank you for watching. I will see you guys later.